The crystal towers of Vorthak Prime stretched toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the largest tower, the Galactic Military Academy buzzed with activity as students from dozens of worlds attended their classes. In Classroom 7 Delta, 3 unlikely friends sat together in the back row, whispering during their xenopolitics lecture. Kira's crystalline skin caught the light from the windows, creating small rainbows on her desk. The tall Zolothian girl had telepathic abilities like all her people, but she preferred talking out loud with her friends. Next to her sat Day, a Krillian whose forearms moved constantly as he took notes on 3 different tablets at once. His insect-like features twitched with curiosity. On Kira's other side, Yuna's small blue form glowed softly with bioluminescent patterns that showed her mood. The aquatic Nephthari was the smallest in their class but had the fiercest spirit. Professor Vexithara, a massive being with tentacles for arms, was explaining the current state of galactic politics. Her voice boomed across the classroom as she gestured at a holographic map showing the galaxy split into different colors. The Grand Galactic War continues to rage between the eastern and western spiral arms, the professor said. Over 200 years of conflict have shaped our modern political landscape. Nearly every advanced species participates in some capacity, providing troops, resources, or strategic support. Day raised one of his 4 hands. Professor, which species fight the most effectively? The tentacled professor's eyes gleamed. Excellent question. The Krothak Empire has the strongest individual warriors. The Severian Collective has the best technology. The Nephthari Alliance excels at underwater combat. She paused, looking at each student. But interestingly, there is one species that is completely forbidden from participating in any galactic conflict. Yuna's patterns brightened with interest. Who? Humans, Professor Vexthera said quietly. They are the only species explicitly banned from all military actions under the Galactic Charter. Kira leaned forward. Why, are they too weak to help? The professor's tentacles suddenly went rigid. Her expression changed completely. That is classified information. We should move on to trade regulations. The 3 friends exchanged glances. In all their classes, they had never seen a professor refuse to answer a question so quickly. Something was wrong. After class, the trio gathered in their favorite spot in the Academy gardens. Floating platforms held exotic plants from across the galaxy, creating a peaceful maze of colors and scents. Did you see how scared she looked? Yuna said, her patterns flashing orange with excitement. She knows something about humans that she cannot tell us. Day's analytical mind was already working. I have studied many species in our database. Humans are listed as a level 3 civilization with basic space travel capabilities. They discovered faster than light travel less than 1,000 years ago. Nothing about them seems dangerous. Kira closed her eyes and concentrated. I tried to read the professor's mind when she mentioned humans, but there was a wall there. Something she was actively trying not to think about. So what do we do? Yuna asked. We researched, Day said, all 4 arms moving as he pulled out his tablets. Everything about humans and why they are banned from galactic conflicts. They spent the next 3 days searching through every database they could access. The results were frustrating. Every official record about humanity's military prohibition had been heavily censored. Most files simply said classified or redacted by order of the Galactic Council. The few remaining documents were confusing. Trade records showed humans were friendly and cooperative. Cultural exchanges described them as curious and adaptable. Scientific collaborations praised their creativity and problem-solving skills. Nothing suggested they should be banned from anything. On the 4th day, Yuna made a breakthrough. Deep in the Academy's legal archives, she found a copy of the original Galactic Charter from 847 years ago. Hidden in subsection 47C of military regulations was a single line. For the preservation of galactic civilization, the species designated human shall remain permanently excluded from all military conflicts under penalty of immediate extermination. Immediate extermination? Kira whispered as they read it together. Not just the humans who break the rule, but their entire species? Day's compound eyes focused intensely on the text. This suggests that allowing humans to fight would somehow threaten all galactic civilization. But how is that possible? Yuna's patterns turned deep purple with determination. There is only one place that might have answers. The Forbidden Archives. The Forbidden Archives were legendary among Academy students. Located in the deepest levels of the academy, they contained knowledge too dangerous for regular study. Most students believed they were just a myth, but rumors persisted about documents that could drive people insane or technologies that could destroy star systems. "That is impossible," Day said. "The security systems are beyond anything we could bypass." Kira smiled, her crystalline features catching the light. "Not if we work together. My telepathic abilities can confuse organic guards. Day's technical skills can handle electronic systems, and Yuna's small size can get her through spaces others cannot reach." Yuna's patterns shifted to bright yellow with excitement. "When do we go?" "Tonight," Kira decided. "During the third moon's eclipse when the shadows are darkest." That evening, the three friends met near the central tower's service entrance. Yuna had filled her portable water suit, allowing her to survive outside her usual aquatic environment for several hours. Day carried a collection of hacking devices hidden in his tool belt. Kira wore a simple cloak that would help her blend into shadows. The first obstacle was the outer security checkpoint. Two Krothak guards stood at attention, their massive forms blocking the entrance. Kira concentrated, sending subtle telepathic suggestions into their minds. Slowly, both guards began to feel drowsy. Within minutes, they were sound asleep at their posts. The next challenge was the electronic lock on the archive door. Day connected his devices to the security panel, while his other hands worked on backup systems. The lock was more complex than anything he had encountered, but his four-armed advantage let him work on multiple components simultaneously. "Almost there," he whispered as sparks flew from the panel. Finally, the door slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond lay a corridor that seemed to stretch into infinite darkness. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air felt thick with the weight of hidden knowledge. "Are we sure about this?" Yuna asked quietly. Kira nodded firmly. "We need to know the truth. Why is an entire species banned from helping in a war that has lasted for centuries? What could humans possibly do that scares the entire galaxy?" Together, the three friends stepped into the forbidden archives, unaware that they were about to discover a secret that would change everything they thought they knew about the universe. The forbidden archives stretched deeper than the three friends had imagined. Corridor after corridor filled with sealed vaults, each marked with warning symbols in dozens of galactic languages. The air hummed with energy from containment fields protecting dangerous knowledge from the outside world. Yuna led the way through the narrow passages, her small form moving silently between the towering storage units. Her bioluminescent patterns had dimmed to barely visible, casting just enough light to see without triggering motion sensors. "Here," Day whispered, stopping at a vault marked with human symbols. Earth's languages were rare in the archives, making this section easy to spot. These containers are labeled with dates from 847 years ago. Kira pressed her hand against the storage unit's surface. The metal felt cold and somehow wrong, as if the contents inside wanted to stay hidden. "I can sense something powerful in there. Fear. Lots of fear." Day worked quickly with his tools, bypassing the electronic locks with practiced skill. The storage unit opened with a deep groan, revealing rows of data crystals and recording devices. Each item was labeled with codes that meant nothing to them, except for one file that made them all freeze. "Terra Incident, Classification Omega," Yuna read aloud. "What does Omega classification mean?" "It means this information could destroy civilizations if it got out," Day answered quietly. His knowledge of military classifications suddenly felt heavy in his mind. They carefully removed the data crystal and found a viewing station in the corner of the vault. The holographic display activated with Day's touch, filling the air with images from nearly 9 centuries ago. The recording showed a massive space station orbiting a beautiful blue and green planet. Ships from dozens of species surrounded the station in perfect formation. At the center of it all, a small delegation of creatures stepped out of a simple metal vessel. "First contact," Kira breathed. "We are watching first contact with humans." The humans looked surprisingly ordinary. They walked on 2 legs like many species, had 2 arms and no visible natural weapons. They were smaller than Krothak warriors, had no psychic abilities like Zolothians, and could not survive in space like some other races. In every way, they seemed unremarkable. The recording showed the humans meeting with the Galactic Council. Admiral Hyun, a middle-aged human with graying hair, spoke clearly and calmly to the assembled alien leaders. Next to him stood Diplomat Nari, a younger woman who smiled warmly at each species representative. "We are honored to meet you. Admiral Hyan said in the recording. Humanity has dreamed of this day since we first looked up at the stars. We hope to learn from you and contribute what we can to galactic peace. The council members looked amused. Their expressions and body language showed they thought these humans were charming but harmless. One counselor, a massive creature with multiple heads, actually laughed. Tell us, Admiral, the counselor said. What can your species offer the galaxy? What are your people's greatest strengths? Admiral Hyan thought for a moment. We adapt quickly to new situations. We solve problems by thinking in ways others might not expect, and we never give up when protecting something we care about. More laughter from the council. They clearly did not see these traits as impressive. The recording jumped forward several months. Now the humans had been given quarters on the space station and were working with various galactic departments. They served as advisors, translators, and researchers. Everything seemed normal and peaceful. Then came the announcement that changed everything. We have decided to test humanity's military capabilities, announced Council Leader Zorthan, a being whose multiple tentacles moved as he spoke. A minor conflict has begun between the Kelvari and Nostrani systems. Both sides have agreed to allow human observers and advisors. This will help us understand what role humans might play in our military structure. The three friends watched as Admiral Hyan accepted the assignment with quiet dignity. The humans seemed pleased to help, but showed no signs of excitement about the coming conflict. This should be educational, Nari said in the recording. Perhaps we can help end this conflict quickly and save lives on both sides. The next recording was dated 3 days later. The scene showed the same space station, but everything had changed. Council members ran frantically between rooms. Emergency alerts flashed on every screen. The calm, organized atmosphere had been replaced by chaos and fear. Council Leader Zorthan appeared on screen, his tentacles shaking visibly. Emergency session called to order. The human intervention in the Kelvari-Nostrani conflict has concluded. Concluded, asked another counselor. It has only been 3 days. Yes, Zorthan replied. The conflict that had lasted 47 years ended in 72 hours. Both sides have surrendered unconditionally and requested immediate peace negotiations. Excited murmurs filled the council chamber. The humans had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. However, Zorthan continued, and his tone made everyone fall silent. We need to review exactly how they achieved this result. The screen filled with battlefield recordings. What the three friends saw made them understand why the counselors looked terrified. The humans had not just participated in the conflict, they had transformed it completely. Where other species fought for territory or resources, the humans fought differently. They struck at supply lines, communication networks, and leadership structures simultaneously. They used tactics that confused both sides so thoroughly that armies surrendered rather than face more human strategies. But the most disturbing part was how casually the humans discussed their actions. In one recording, Admiral Hyan explained their approach to a group of alien military observers. The key is to make continued fighting impossible, he said matter-of-factly. We identified the economic, political, and military factors keeping the conflict active, then systematically removed each one. Once fighting became more costly than peace, both sides naturally chose peace. But the speed, protested a Krothak general. How did you move so quickly? Admiral Hyan smiled. We did not just plan for this battle. We planned for every battle these two sides might fight for the next 50 years, then prevented all of them at once. The recording ended, leaving the three friends staring at the empty holographic display in silence. They ended a 47-year war in 3 days, Yuna whispered, her patterns shifting to deep purple with shock. And they were not even trying to be impressive, Day added, all 4 of his arms trembling slightly. This was what they called a simple peacekeeping mission. Kira's telepathic abilities were picking up the emotions recorded in the crystals. The council members were not just surprised. They were terrified. But there is more. I can sense other recordings. Much worse than this. Day's hands moved over the storage unit's contents until he found another crystal, marked with symbols that made his compound eyes widen in fear. The Altair Incident. Eyes only. Galactic Council Supreme Command. None of them spoke as Day inserted the new crystal into the viewing station. Whatever they were about to see had scared the galaxy's most powerful leaders enough to hide it in the deepest archives for over 8 centuries. The display activated, and Admiral Hyan's face appeared again. But this time his expression was different, colder, more focused, and behind him stood not just diplomat Nari, but dozens of other humans in military uniforms. "Admiral's log, Terran Fleet Command," he said calmly. "The hegemony of Drakmor has launched an unprovoked attack on the Altair system. 12 billion civilians are at risk. The Galactic Council has given us permission to attempt a limited intervention." He paused, and for just a moment, something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "We are going to show the galaxy what humans do to those who threaten innocent lives." The three friends huddled closer to the holographic display as the Altair incident recordings began. The timestamp showed this happened 50 years after first contact, when humans had become trusted members of galactic society. They served as advisors and peacekeepers, respected for their problem-solving abilities but still considered a minor species. The first recording showed the Galactic Council in emergency session. Panic filled the chamber as reports came in from the Altair system. The hegemony of Drakmor, a powerful empire that had been fighting the Eastern Front for over a century, had launched a massive surprise attack. 4 planets. 12 billion civilians, announced Council Leader Zorthan, his tentacles writhing with distress. The hegemony bypassed all our early warning systems. Their fleet appeared without warning and began orbital bombardment immediately. Other councilors shouted questions and demands. How had this happened? Where were their intelligence networks? What was the military response plan? "Our nearest battle fleets are 6 months away," reported Admiral Keksmara of the Siberian Collective. "By the time we can mount a proper response, the Altair system will be under complete hegemony control." "What about the humans?" asked Councillor Vorthala. "They have a small fleet in that sector. Could they provide assistance?" A wave of dismissive sounds filled the chamber. The human fleet consisted of only 12 ships, barely enough to evacuate a few thousand civilians from 4 planets. "We could ask them to attempt a rescue mission," Zorthan said slowly, "but we must be realistic about what such a small force can accomplish." The scene changed to show General Jin and Admiral Sua, 2 humans who had become famous throughout the galaxy for their tactical brilliance. They stood in the command center of the human flagship, studying holographic displays of the Altair system. 12 billion people, General Jin said quietly. His face was calm, but something cold had entered his eyes. "Children, families, innocent civilians being murdered while we debate." Admiral Sua nodded grimly. "The Council has given us permission for a limited intervention. They expect us to evacuate who we can and withdraw." "And what do you think we should do?" General Jin asked. Admiral Sua's expression hardened. "I think the hegemony needs to learn why humans do not attack civilians." The recording jumped to show the human fleet approaching the Altair system. 12 small ships against the massive hegemony armada that had conquered 4 planets. The aliens watching these recordings centuries ago must have expected a brief, heroic rescue attempt followed by retreat. They were completely wrong. The human ships did not head for the planets to evacuate civilians. Instead, they spread out across the star system in a pattern that made no sense to conventional military thinking. Some ships headed for the outer asteroid fields. Others moved toward the system's gas giant. A few actually flew away from the battle entirely. "What are they doing?" asked a hegemony fleet commander in an intercepted communication. "Their deployment makes no tactical sense." General Jin's voice came over the human fleet communications channel. "All units, execute Protocol 7. Full spectrum engagement. Show them what total war means." What happened next would haunt the galaxy for centuries. The human ships did not engage the hegemony fleet directly. Instead, they began systematically destroying everything that made the hegemony's presence in the system possible. Mining stations that supplied their ships, communication relays that connected them to their empire, supply depots hidden in the outer planets. But this was just the beginning. The 3 friends watched in growing horror as the humans demonstrated capabilities no one knew they possessed. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking targets across dozens of star systems simultaneously. How was this possible with only 12 vessels? The answer came from Admiral Sua's calm voice explaining their strategy to his officers.
"The hegemony thinks this is a battle for the Altair system."
"They are wrong. This is a war for the continued existence of the hegemony of Drakmor." "Sir?" asked a human officer. "Every supply line that feeds their war machine, every shipyard that builds their vessels, every recruiting center that trains their soldiers." Every government building that houses their leadership. All of it becomes a legitimate target the moment they chose to murder civilians. The recordings showed human forces striking across 11 star systems at once. Not random attacks, but precisely coordinated strikes that crippled the hegemony's ability to continue fighting. Day's analytical mind struggled to understand the planning required for such operations. Impossible, he whispered. The coordination alone would require computational power beyond anything in our databases. They are not just fighting a battle, Kira said, her telepathic abilities picking up the emotions embedded in the recordings. They are dismantling an entire civilization. On-screen, hegemony leaders broadcast increasingly desperate surrender offers. They would withdraw from Altair. They would pay massive reparations. They would accept any terms for peace. General Jin's response was broadcast across the galaxy. You had the opportunity for peace before you began murdering civilians. That opportunity has expired. The systematic destruction continued. Hegemony colonies found their orbital defense platforms mysteriously disabled. Their communication networks went silent. Their military academies suffered catastrophic accidents. Their government officials began disappearing. But the most terrifying part was how few humans were actually involved. Intelligence reports showed that most of the destruction was being carried out by the same 12 ships that had entered the Altair system. Somehow they were accomplishing in days what should have required massive fleets and years of preparation. How? Yuna asked, her patterns flashing orange with confusion. How can 12 ships destroy an empire that spans 11 star systems? The answer came from a recording of Admiral Sua, explaining human military doctrine to a group of allied observers. His words were spoken calmly as if he was discussing the weather. Other species fight until their enemy surrenders. We fight until our enemy cannot threaten anyone ever again. The hegemony chose to target civilians, which means they have forfeited their right to exist as a military power. But surely you will accept their surrender eventually, asked a Severian observer. Admiral Sua's expression never changed. What surrender? By the time we are finished, there will be no hegemony left to surrender. 72 hours after the human intervention began, it was over. The hegemony of Drakmor, an empire that had existed for over a millennium, had been reduced to scattered refugee fleets begging for asylum. 11 star systems lay in ruins. 300 billion beings were dead or displaced. The Altair system was free, its civilian population safe. The human fleet had accomplished their rescue mission perfectly. The final recording showed an emergency session of the Galactic Council 3 days later. The chamber was silent except for the sound of breathing from dozens of species. No one seemed to know what to say. Finally, Council Leader Zorthon spoke. Admiral Sua, you were authorized to attempt a limited rescue mission. Can you explain what happened? Admiral Sua stood calmly before the assembled leaders of galactic civilization. We rescued the civilians of the Altair system by removing the threat to their safety. Mission accomplished. You destroyed an entire empire, Zorthon said quietly. We eliminated a threat to innocent life, Admiral Sua corrected. The hegemony made their choice when they began targeting civilians. We simply ensured they could not make that choice again. 300 billion dead, whispered Counselor Vorthala. Admiral Sua's expression finally changed, showing just a flicker of sadness. Yes, that is what happens when someone forces humans to choose between innocent lives and military restraint. We will always choose to protect the innocent. The recording ended, leaving the three friends staring at the empty display in complete silence. Finally, Kira spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. They did not just win a battle. They erased an entire civilization from existence. In 3 days, Day added, his forearms trembling. With 12 ships. Yuna's patterns had turned deep black, the color of fear among her people. And they called it a rescue mission. Deep in the storage unit, more data crystals waited. The three friends knew they had only begun to understand why humans were forbidden from galactic warfare. What they had seen was terrifying, but something told them the worst was yet to come. The deepest part of the storage vault contained files that made the three friends hesitate before opening them. These crystals were marked with symbols they had never seen before. Warnings in languages so old that their translation programs could barely understand them. Xenopsychological analysis, species designation. Human, classification, extinction level threat. Day read slowly. This file is over 700 years old. Kira pressed her hand against the crystal, using her telepathic abilities to sense what lay within. Immediately, she jerked her hand back as if burned. Fear. More fear than I have ever felt. Whoever wrote this was absolutely terrified. Yuna's pattern shifted to pale blue with worry. Maybe we should stop. Some knowledge is too dangerous, but they had come too far to turn back now. Day inserted the crystal into the viewing station, and the holographic display filled with the image of an elderly alien scientist. The nameplate identified her as Dr. Zenthara, Chief Xenopsychologist of the Galactic Council. Personal log, Dr. Zenthara, Day 2847 of Human Psychological Analysis. The recording began. After decades of study, I must now present my findings to the Council. I fear they will not believe what I have discovered. The scene changed to show Dr. Zenthara standing before the full Galactic Council. Charts and diagrams filled the air around her, showing brain scans, behavioral patterns, and genetic analyses of human subjects. Honored counselors, she began, I have completed the most comprehensive psychological study in galactic history. My team has analyzed human behavior patterns, cultural development, military tactics, and evolutionary history. Our conclusion is both simple and terrifying. She paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from hundreds of worlds. Humans are not like us. They are not like any species we have encountered. Every other sapient race in the galaxy evolved some form of submission behavior, territorial limitation, or conflict resolution mechanism. Humans evolved the opposite. A Krothak counselor interrupted. Explain what you mean by the opposite. Dr. Zenthara's expression grew grim. Humans are persistence hunters who specialized in the complete elimination of threats. They did not evolve to fight until surrender or strategic advantage. They evolved to fight until extinction. The holographic display showed images from Earth's history, massive creatures that once ruled the planet, now existing only in museums, entire species that had vanished when humans arrived in new territories. On their homeworld, Dr. Zenthara continued, humans encountered hundreds of different sapient species. Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo erectus, and others. Where are they now? Silence filled the council chamber. Gone. All gone. Humans did not conquer them or enslave them. They simply replaced them so completely that these species ceased to exist. This is not cruelty. It is instinct. The three friends watched as counselors began to shift uncomfortably. This was information none of them wanted to hear. But surely, said a Severian representative, humans have learned to control these instincts. They seem peaceful enough in our interactions. Dr. Zenthara shook her head. You misunderstand. Humans are peaceful because they currently face no existential threats. But observe what happens when they perceive a threat to their survival or their values. The display showed military recordings they had not seen before. Human commanders discussing strategy with a casualness that chilled the alien observers. Commander Sion appeared on screen, explaining human military doctrine to a group of galactic officers. Strategic depth through preemptive elimination, she said matter-of-factly. If an enemy has the capacity to threaten us in the future, we remove that capacity permanently. What does preemptive elimination mean? Asked a confused alien officer. We destroy their ability to be a threat before they can use it, Sion explained. Their weapons factories, their research facilities, their military training programs, their government structures. Everything that could potentially be used against us or our allies. Another recording showed General Mira discussing long-term conflict planning. Multi-generational conflict resolution, she called it. We do not just plan to win this war. We plan to prevent the next war, and the war after that, and the war after that. How far ahead do you plan? Asked an alien strategist. As far as necessary, Mira replied. Sometimes conflicts have roots that go back centuries. If we want permanent peace, we have to address those roots permanently. The most disturbing recording showed Admiral June presenting something called total demographic warfare to a group of human officers. The three friends did not understand all the technical terms, but the concept was clear. Humans had developed ways to ensure that hostile populations could never threaten anyone again. Dr. Zenthara's voice returned as the recordings ended. You see the pattern? Humans do not seek victory in the way other species understand it. They seek the permanent elimination of the possibility of future conflict. But they have shown restraint, protested a counselor. The Altair incident could have been much worse. Could it? Dr. Zenthara asked. The hegemony of Drakmor no longer exists. 300 billion beings are dead. 11 star systems have been depopulated. How could it have been worse? The counselor fell silent. The terrifying truth, Dr. Zenthara continued, is that humans showed tremendous restraint during the Altair incident. They could have eliminated every trace of Drakmor civilization across 50 star systems. They chose to limit themselves to 11. She brought up a new display showing human population centers across the galaxy. In the 50 years since first contact, humans have integrated peacefully into our society. They serve as advisors, researchers, and peacekeepers. They appear to be model galactic citizens. Then what is the problem? Asked Council Leader Zorthan. The problem is what happens if they ever decide we are a threat, Dr. Zenthara said quietly. Humans do not have enemies. They have targets for elimination. Once they identify something as a threat to their survival or their values, they will pursue that threat with single-minded determination until it no longer exists. The display showed psychological profiles of human leaders, Admiral Hyun, General Jin, Admiral Sua, and dozens of others. The analysis revealed something that made the three friends' blood run cold. These humans genuinely believe they are being merciful, Dr. Zenthara explained. In their minds, completely destroying a threat is kinder than allowing it to continue existing and suffering. They see extinction as a form of peace. What do you recommend? Zorthan asked. Dr. Zenthara's next words would echo through galactic history. We must never, under any circumstances, allow humans to participate in the galaxy war. If they join either side, they will not seek victory. They will seek the total elimination of the other side. And once they begin, they will not stop until every trace of their enemies has been wiped from existence. Surely you exaggerate, said a counselor. Do I? Dr. Zenthara asked. Humans have a saying, the only good enemy is a dead enemy. But they do not mean individual enemies. They mean the complete elimination of the enemy's capacity to ever threaten anyone again. Their culture, their technology, their breeding populations, their very identity. The recording showed one final image, a human child's drawing of their family. It looked innocent enough until Dr. Zenthara explained what the psychologists had discovered. Human children are taught from birth that protecting their family is more important than their own lives. But they define family very broadly. Their species, their allies, innocent civilians they have never met, all are considered family worth dying for. And worth killing for, she added quietly. The recording ended with Dr. Zenthara's final recommendation. Humans must be kept ignorant of the true scale of galactic conflict. If they discover that 2/3 of the galaxy is currently at war, they will inevitably choose a side, and when they do, they will end the war the only way they know how, by ensuring one side can never fight again. The three friends sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. Everything they had been taught about galactic politics was a lie. The peaceful, stable civilization they lived in was actually torn apart by the largest war in galactic history. And humans were banned not because they were weak, but because they were too dangerous to allow near any conflict. They do not fight wars, Kira whispered. They fight extinctions. And they think they are being merciful, Day added, his analytical mind struggling to process what they had learned. Yuna's patterns had turned completely black. What happens if they find out about the galaxy war? None of them wanted to answer that question. But deep in the storage vault, one final crystal waited for them. And they all knew with growing dread that they had to see what it contained. The final crystal was different from all the others. Where previous files had been marked with warnings and classifications, this one bore a simple label. Operation Peaceful Sleep, current implementation status. The timestamp showed it had been updated just days ago. Current? Yuna said, her patterns flickering with confusion. These files should all be ancient history. Day's forehands moved nervously as he inserted the crystal. This suggests the operation is still active. Still happening right now. The holographic display activated to show a familiar face. Council Leader Zorthan, but much older than in the previous recordings. This was recent, perhaps recorded within the last few months. Operation Peaceful Sleep Status Report, Galactic Year 3847, he began. The containment of human knowledge regarding the galaxy war continues successfully after 847 years of implementation. Kira's telepathic abilities immediately, picked up the emotional resonance in the recording. He is exhausted and terrified. This operation has been going on for over 8 centuries. The display showed detailed charts and statistics. Human population centers, their communication networks, their exploration patterns. Everything was being carefully monitored and controlled. Earth remains isolated within the designated neutral zone. Zorthan continued. Human colonies have been limited to 17 systems, all carefully selected to avoid contact with war zones. Human exploration missions continue to be redirected away from conflict areas through false navigational data and staged equipment failures. The 3 friends realized they were witnessing the galaxy's greatest deception. For nearly 900 years, the Galactic Council had been lying to humanity about the true nature of galactic civilization. Human historical records have been successfully edited. The report continued. They believe first contact occurred peacefully, and that galactic civilization is largely stable and peaceful. They have no knowledge of the Eastern and Western Front conflicts, the ongoing siege of the Korthak systems, or the recent escalation in the Outer Rim territories. Yuna's patterns shifted to deep purple. They think we live in a peaceful galaxy. They have no idea that billions die in war every year. The display changed to show communication intercepts from human space. Scientists discussing their hope for eventual admission to the Galactic Council. Philosophers writing about humanity's role in promoting peace throughout the galaxy. Children dreaming of exploring the stars and making friends with alien species. The irony is devastating, Day observed. They want to help. They genuinely want to bring peace to the galaxy, and that is exactly why we cannot let them. The recording continued with Chancellor Lex Thari, a being whose multiple heads allowed him to process information faster than most species. He looked older and more worn than the 3 friends had ever seen him in public appearances. The greatest challenge to Operation Peaceful Sleep comes from human curiosity, he reported. Their exploration technology improves constantly. Their deep space sensors become more sophisticated each year. Eventually, they will detect signs of the war zones. What is our contingency plan? Asked another voice off-screen. If humans discover the galaxy war on their own, Lex Thari replied, we implement Protocol Omega, total information suppression, followed by forced relocation of all human populations to designated containment worlds. The 3 friends exchanged horrified glances. Protocol Omega meant the end of human freedom throughout the galaxy. And if that fails? The voice asked. Lex Thari's multiple heads turned toward the camera, and his expression was one of absolute despair. If containment fails, if humans learn the truth and decide to intervene in the galaxy war, then we implement the final contingency. Article 47C of the original charter, complete extermination of the human species, the voice finished. Quietly, the recording showed one final scene that would haunt the 3 friends forever. A secure council chamber, where the galaxy's most powerful leaders discussed humanity's fate with the casual tone of people planning a meal. The war has escalated again, reported Admiral Kexmara. The Eastern Front has developed new biological weapons. The Western Alliance has responded with planet-killing orbital platforms. Casualty estimates for this year alone exceed 2 trillion beings. Any sign of human detection? Asked Lex Thari. Negative. Their sensors show them a galaxy largely at peace. They continued to send diplomatic messages requesting full membership in the Galactic Council. Poor creatures, sighed Counselor Vorthala. They genuinely want to help end suffering in the galaxy. If only they knew that their help would mean the end of everything. Perhaps it would be kinder to tell them the truth, suggested a younger counselor. Let them make their own choice. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Zorthan spoke with the voice of someone who had carried a terrible burden for centuries. You were not alive during the Altair incident. You did not see what humans call limited intervention. 300 billion dead in 72 hours. An entire empire reduced to scattered refugees, and they called it a rescue mission. He paused, his ancient eyes reflecting memories of horrors beyond imagination. If humans learn about the galaxy war, they will not choose a side. They will choose to end it permanently. Every species currently fighting, every world currently in conflict, every being that has raised a weapon in anger, all of it will cease to exist. Humans do not end wars. They end the ability to wage war. The recording ended, leaving the 3 friends alone with the weight of the galaxy's greatest secret. For several minutes, none of them could speak. Finally, Kira broke the silence. We have to tell someone. The Academy, the Council, someone in authority. Tell them what? Day asked. That we broke into the most secure archives in the galaxy? That we have evidence of a conspiracy involving every major government? What about the humans? Yuna asked quietly. Do they not deserve to know the truth? Before anyone could answer, an alarm began blaring throughout the archives. Emergency lights flashed red, and automated security announcements echoed through the corridors. Unauthorized access detected in Vault 47 Omega. Security teams responding. All personnel evacuate immediately. They know we are here, Day said, his forearms moving frantically to gather the data crystals. We have minutes before they arrive. Kira closed her eyes, extending her telepathic senses as far as possible. I can feel them coming. Dozens of guards, multiple species. And something else. Someone very powerful is with them. What do we do? Yuna asked, her patterns cycling rapidly through colors of fear and confusion. They had three choices. They could surrender and hope the authorities would listen to their concerns. They could try to escape and live with the secret forever. Or they could do something that would change the galaxy forever. Day's analytical mind made the decision for them. There, he said, pointing to a communication terminal in the corner of the vault. Emergency broadcast system. We can send a message to any location in the galaxy. To whom? Kira asked. To the one place that needs to know the truth, Yuna said, her patterns shifting to bright gold with determination. To Earth. They worked together with desperate speed. Day's technical skills accessed the communication system, while Kira used her telepathic abilities to compose a message that would convey the emotional weight of their discovery. Yuna's small size allowed her to access manual controls that the others could not reach. The message was simple but devastating. Humanity, your galaxy is at war. 2 trillion dead this year alone. Your people are being kept ignorant to prevent your intervention. The coordinates of the nearest battle zone are attached. The choice is yours. As security forces pounded on the vault door, D transmitted the message toward Earth's solar system. It would take months to arrive, but when it did, everything would change. The vault door exploded inward, and Chancellor Lexithari himself strode through the smoke, flanked by the most elite security forces in the galaxy. His multiple heads turned toward the three friends with expressions of profound sadness. You have doomed us all, he said quietly. 3 months later, Admiral Wu stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel New Horizon as it crossed into unknown space. The message had reached Earth just as the 3 alien students had planned. Humanity's greatest leaders had debated for weeks before making their decision. Admiral, reported Communications Officer Park, we are receiving a transmission from the galaxy's edge. It appears to be a battle in progress. Admiral Wu studied the tactical display showing fleets locked in desperate combat. Millions of ships, weapons that could destroy planets, casualties beyond counting. How long has this been going on? He asked quietly. According to the transmission data, Park replied, approximately 237 years of continuous warfare. Admiral Wu was silent for a long moment, thinking of the children back on Earth who dreamed of a peaceful galaxy full of friends, thinking of the diplomats who had spent decades requesting membership in what they thought was a peaceful galactic community. Send a message to Earth, he finally said. Tell them we have found the war. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the cold certainty that had once terrified the hegemony of Drakmor. Tell them it is time to bring peace to the galaxy. In the depths of space, the human fleet changed course toward the battle zone.